Maryland senators took up two GOP-led marijuana bills on Friday, one that would let police search vehicles based on the smell of cannabis, and another that's meant to protect gun rights for medical marijuana patients. Members of the Senate Judicial Proceedings Committee discussed the legislation during a hearing, listening to testimony in support and opposition, but did not vote on the proposals. Senator William Folden is sponsoring the bill to authorize law enforcement searches based on marijuana odor, a measure he says attempts to correct a wrong, an error that the legislature made when it passed reform legislation that was enacted last year to specifically prevent such searches, given that the state has legalized marijuana. If the smell of cannabis is emitted from a car, that's a strong indicator that person is in violation of the law and potentially impaired at the time, Folden said, adding that this strong odor is definitely discernible by law enforcement and those in the community. Two county prosecutors also testified in favor of the measure, but drug policy reform advocates, including the ACLU, Maryland Public Policy Director Yannette Emanuel, defended the current policy that bars police from conducting a cannabis odor based on searches. The proponents of SB 396 have said that banning odor stops and searches will impede law enforcement's ability to investigate incidents of impaired driving, but that's simply not true, she said. The law makes it explicit that the odor of marijuana cannot be considered as part of the totality of circumstances to support the officer's observations of suspected impairment. The odor of marijuana simply cannot be the sole basis for a stop to investigate driving under the influence. What police do is use the alleged odor of marijuana to justify racial profiling. She said diligent law enforcement can and should be used to solve crime using honest-based initiatives and techniques without relying on a potential basis such as the odor of marijuana for stopping and searching black and brown people, or YARO. Last November, the Maryland Legislature Joint Republican Caucus previewed their push to undo the prohibition on odor-based searches, claiming that the law had put motorists at risk and taken away an important tool used by law enforcement to seize people's firearms. At Friday's hearing, members also briefly considered a separate proposal from Senator Mike McKay that would protect the rights of registered medical cannabis patients to buy, own, and carry firearms under state law. The issue has been raised in multiple state legislatures and federal courts in recent years as marijuana and gun right advocates challenge the constitutionality of the federal ban that currently prohibits cannabis consumers from owning firearms. Just last month, in neighboring Pennsylvania, a district attorney filed suit against the Justice Department over the ban that he says violates the Second Amendment right of medical cannabis patients such as himself. The issue was previously raised in the Maryland legislature around this time last year, with the House Judiciary Committee holding a hearing on a separate but related measure to ensure medical marijuana patients' gun rights are protected. So let me just kick off real quick with a little riff, ramble, and rant. So if we can't see the irony in the Republicans in Maryland supporting gun rights for medical marijuana patients, but also suggesting that being able to stop a car and search it based on the odor of marijuana would be good to enforce against people who have guns. If we can't see the irony on the face of that, if we can't laugh at the hypocrisy of that, and if we can't in our hearts be deeply pained by the flip-flopping, reversing, the tic-tacking, the course-correcting of this senator who suggested that they got it wrong and is asking for ways to continue to infringe upon people's rights against unreasonable search and seizure, the only remedy in my mind is vote them out, hold them accountable. The idea, so first of all, personally, I'm in favor of medical marijuana patients being able to have guns. I'm also in favor of the smell of marijuana not being probable cause. I think that if we were going to talk about marijuana odor as probable cause, it would be no different than if someone accidentally spilled some wine in their vehicle as they were loading up some catering equipment. Does the smell of wine in a vehicle become probable cause? I don't know. I'm not a legal expert, but it is painful to me to see that we're still litigating and adjudicating these issues when they're really non-issues. And then what I pull away from this and think about is like, why are we wasting time and resources as if this is the biggest concern in this state? Why are they putting up these types of, these types of backtracking legislations when that bandwidth, that legislative bandwidth, could most likely be used on things that have a greater benefit for a greater number of constituents? This is Yarrow Kubrin, high at 9 News and wet in Sonoma County. What do you guys think?
Man, Yarrow. I mean, this is like, it's like good news and bad news all in the same story.
It's a good story.
Yeah, you know, like I'm really glad that they're trying to protect the gun rights of cannabis users and patients and whatnot. But the fact of them trying to bring back the ability to search vehicles based off of odor is just kind of like, you know, you guys already gave that up. So why are we trying to go back? Someone is definitely getting paid by law enforcement, because this smells like the police union fingerprints all over it.
It sounds like they're getting money from the NRA, but not from the ACLU.
Oh man.
And you know what's sad in this situation, and Yarrow, you hit it right on the head on saying, like, don't we have better things in this state to focus on and to use our resources on? But one of the saddest things is that the tool that law enforcement uses of being able to say, oh, I smelled weed in a car or in a home, and then being able to enter it and then search, and then usually ends up in an arrest, and usually of a black or a brown or a poor person, is one of the most racist and prejudicial and tools that law enforcement used in profiling during the whole war on drugs. You could get, in my experience growing up in Modesto, you could get pulled over for anything during the 90s and your car smelled like weed, and you were on the curb, and everything was getting taken out of your car, and that was a common tactic that law enforcement used all the time. So please do not get this wrong on this and roll that back to implement another tool for people who are still drug warriors and still have racist tendencies to be able to use that to harm the community. That is not something that is a benefit of the community. There's a reason that we stopped doing it. So please do not roll that back. But everything else, I'm with it. Our gun rights should not be affected. If you're a cannabis user, that has no bearing on your right to bear arms. And
let's take it a step further. If expungement does not include the reinstatement of the Second Amendment right, then expungement doesn't go far enough. I'm sorry, Biden, but your little plaque and certificate, if it does not reinstate someone's Second Amendment rights, if somebody can get convicted for cannabis at 18 years old and at 78 years old can't go duck hunting in the Sacramento Delta with their grandchildren, then we have not gone far enough. And when I think about this law here in Maryland, and I think about them reinstating odor as probable cause, what I think about is not just the impact to people in vehicles, people who didn't likely deserve to be searched, and people who are going to pick up funky little charges and piece of shit cases as a result. I also think about the cost to the taxpayer when it comes to training the next wave of cadets and the police force in Maryland. Are they still going to train them on odor as probable cause? Are they still going to pay for their Belgian Malinois and German Shepherds to use the smell of marijuana as a reason to bark? Think about all of the downstream expenses that get put into this pipeline of training our men and women in blue, and all that gets allocated towards doing that merely to smell something that is legal to possess within that state.
The underbelly of the cost of the war on cannabis.
Agreed. I agree with both you guys on this. And in essence of time, we have one more story for you guys. Oh yeah,
can we bring our favorite gun to work next Monday?
Yes. Are you?
Fuck yeah,
yes.
Dude.
Are we doing the
Matthew St. Germain, the most peaceful, loving gun nut you've ever met? Yeah, I'm gonna bring my favorite.
See,
gun
even Matthew St. Germain is with this. Yeah, even Matthew St. Germain is with
guns. I'm not around any guns.
We know that Luke. We trust.
Luke, you can have a paintball gun.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised if Matthew St. Germain's boomstick. I would not be surprised if Matthew St. Germain's boomstick is etched and engraved with mushrooms along the side of the barrel.
Oh, what a good idea.
Oh God. All right, you guys. I'm going to close out with this last story for you guys. You guys, everyone's been wanting to hear about this.